As we embark on 2021 16 Days of Activism to end violence against women and girls, I want to mark the efforts of the women's aid movement in Scotland over the last 50 years and to say a really big thank you to our grandmothers, our mothers, our aunts, our sisters who volunteered and set up services when nobody else was interested in providing them, and who have campaigned and shouted and whispered and sung and wrote letters and showed up at meetings and listened to survivors to create the services that they need and want. Those efforts will never be forgotten, and it is on your shoulders that we stand today. I also want to thank the allies that have been there for us from almost the beginning, in local and national services, politicians, officials, just frontline workers, many of whom were survivors themselves, who have understood this epidemic of violence and abuse in our families and communities, and have put their arm to the task also. We perhaps, the women's aid movement is in Scotland perhaps stronger in some ways than it has ever been, and we are grateful for that. We are mindful of how much hard work has gone into that and of how important it is that we continue to protect that work. But there is a really big problem in Scotland in domestic abuse services, which is that we have had, since the imposition of austerity at the local level, what we have seen is a steady diet of salami slicing of budgets, in some areas competitive tendering of services, constant erosion of our commitment at the local level to providing the services, that the specialist services that children and women need and have told us over and over help save their lives and help them move to recovering from domestic abuse. We have seen an ever-increasing demand for our services, and yet 81% of our services in the last year that we have data for either experienced a cut or had standstill funding that was, because of inflation, essentially a cut. This must stop. We are working hard with officials in the Scottish Government to create a new structure for funding frontline services that will be based on the needs of those experiencing domestic abuse rather than historical accident. But that is not an overnight task, and that will take some years to deliver, in my view. However, if the erosion of our services continues at the rate that we have seen over the last several years, we may not have a network of women's aid services to restructure by the time we know how to do that. So we have an ask. 2022 will see local government elections in Scotland. We are going to be asking in every local authority for every election and every party who is fielding candidates to commit to ending the erosion of women's aid services across Scotland, of protecting our commitment, of doing what it says on the tin, which is that children and women living with domestic abuse, experiencing domestic abuse, have access to the services they need and the supports they need, where they need them, when they need them, and provided by those who they need to provide them. We are not naive to think that this is an easy task, but we are really aware that with the political will that we know can be mobilized in the 2022 local government elections, that we can stem the tide of cuts and turn the situation around so that children and women get what they need when they need it. We are asking you to help with us. We will be there by your side in these elections in every local authority area, and we know that Scotland can rise to this occasion. And we ask for your help in delivering on the promise that we have made together.